You ever have one of those mornings where the world feels wrong, not dangerous, not dramatic, just off? Like something shifted in the night while you were sleeping? Well, that's exactly how my story begins. With an open garage door and the feeling that my dead husband was trying to tell me something. My name is Carol, and child, sit tight, because this is how my late husband saved my life from beyond the grave and taught my son and his wife a lesson they will never forget. Now, before I dive all the way into this mess, darling, go on and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories that prove our best chapters don't stop just 'cause we've got a few laugh lines, well, you're in the right place. This is the old woman's stories after all. All right. Come closer. Let me tell you what happened. I was standing in the kitchen that morning, coffee going cold in my hands, when I noticed the garage door was wide open, not cracked, not nudged, wide open. And listen, in 43 years of marriage, my dentist never once left that garage door open overnight. Not once. That man could forget his lunch, his jacket, even his wallet, but that garage door, no ma'am. That thing stayed shut like Fort Knox. But Dennis had been gone 8 months now. 8 long, wandering months. Sometimes it still didn't feel real. I set my cup down, walked outside. Spring air met me, warm, soft. The kind Dennis loved. He'd always be in the garage by this hour, radio humming, rag in hand, polishing that car he spent 20 years restoring. But today, the garage was empty. Not just, he stepped out for a minute. Empty. No, empty like something had been taken from me. You spend 20 years staring at the same car, sitting in the same spot. You get used to the sight. You get used to the comfort of it. But now there was nothing but the old oil stain and silence. My chest tightened so hard I had to put a hand on the door frame just to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Back in my nurse days, I taught that to everyone. Heart patients, panic patients, you name it. Funny how the advice you give to others becomes the thing that saves you later on. I walked to the workbench. Everything was right where Dennis left it. His tools, outlined in black marker. Lord, that man loved organization. His journal open on the bench, his handwriting tired but steady. I touched the page like it could bring him back. Almost done. He'd written, road trip next summer. Well, life had other plans. A car engine rumbled outside Brian's car. My son, 38 years old, and still carrying the posture of a boy who knows he's in trouble. Hands shoved in pockets, shoulders tight, eyes avoiding mine. Vanessa slid out of the passenger side like she was stepping onto a runway. Designer sunglasses, perfect hair, and an expression that always made me feel like I was the one intruding. They stood there, and I already knew. A mother always knows. Brian cleared his throat. Mom, I need to talk to you. I didn't waste a second. Where's the car, Brian? His jaw clenched. His eyes fell to the driveway. I sold it. Now let me tell you something. Grief doesn't always come in tears. Sometimes it hits like a clean slap of cold water. Sometimes it goes silent before it sinks in. You, what? I asked. I sold it yesterday. He looked at the empty garage. I needed the money. Of course he did. But it wasn't the why that broke me. It was the how. The disrespect. The secrecy. The way he didn't even look me in the eye. The car Dennis spent 2 decades restoring. Gone. And for what? A Paris trip, a vacation, a little luxury with that woman who watched me like she already owned everything I had. I didn't cry. Not then, not in front of them. But inside, something old and protective snapped clean in half. And that's exactly when life decided to throw me the first twist. Because the very next morning, while I was still trying to understand how my own son could do such a thing, The phone rang. A man's voice, calm, polite, deep enough to make me straighten my back. "Mrs. Bennet," he said, "I have your husband's car." My heart stopped. I didn't breathe. He continued, "There's something your husband wanted you to know, something he hid before he died." And right then, right in that moment, I realized Dennis wasn't done taking care of me. Not at all. He was just getting started. You know, grief is a strange thing. It comes in waves. And sometimes those waves don't hit when you expect them to. No, ma'am. Sometimes they hit when your son stands in your driveway and tells you he sold the last piece of your husband's hands. Brian's voice was tight, like a kid caught doing something he already regretted. "Vanessa's been planning this Paris trip for months," he said. "It's important for her business connections. I couldn't let her down." Well, bless my soul. That was the excuse he chose. I crossed my arms because my hands were shaking too much to keep still. "That was your father's car," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Even the garage walls knew what that car meant. "It was just sitting there," he snapped, defensive. "Dad's gone. You don't even drive it." It was his. Past tense. Past tense. 43 years of marriage reduced to a grammar correction. Brian finally looked at me. Then his eyes were red around the edges. Tired. Guilty. "I got a good price," he said. 15,000. That's fair for a car that old. Fair for 20 years of Dennis's Saturdays. For every scraped knuckle, every late-night tune-up, every page in that work journal. Fair. Lord help me. I wanted to shake that boy so hard, his sneakers flew off into the neighbor's yard. But I stayed composed. 43 years in the ICU teaches you that. Breathe. Think. Act. Even when your heart feels like it's splitting in two. "When did you take it?" I asked. "Yesterday," he said. "You were at the store." Of course. He still had his old key. I never asked for it back. Dennis always left the garage unlocked anyway, just in case inspiration struck him. He'd run out there at midnight if he suddenly remembered a bolt he forgot to tighten. "You should have asked me," I said. "Would you have said yes?" "No," I told him. "I wouldn't have." That's when she walked up. Vanessa. Perfect hair, perfect nails, perfect silence that always felt sharp. She slid her hand onto Brian's arm like she was claiming property. "Carol," she said, calm as a lake in winter, "we're not discussing this. It's done. The car is sold. We leave for Paris tomorrow." Her tone had that sweet, sugared edge people use when they think you're too old or too slow to understand the world anymore. I looked at her, really looked. 2 years married to my son, and I still knew nothing about her that couldn't fit on a cocktail napkin. She smiled behind those sunglasses. Brian needed the money. The car wasn't being used. It made sense. That woman talked about my husband's life's work like it was a yard sale lamp. "It was his father's," I said. "His father is dead." She said it flat. No pause. No softness. Brian stared at his feet again. Her hand tightened on his arm. Possessive, like she was steering him. "We'll send pictures from Paris," she added. "You'd love it there. The architecture, the museums, very romantic." Romantic. She knew exactly what she was doing. Brian cleared his throat. "We should go. Still need to pack." "Yes," she said, tugging him toward the BMW. "We have an early flight." He looked back one last time, one guilty glance, and then he disappeared behind tinted glass. Vanessa rolled down her window. "Take care of yourself, Carol. We'll see you when we're back." The BMW pulled out, turned the corner, gone. And I stood there, in Dennis's empty garage, listening to the echo of an engine that wasn't his. I walked back inside the garage, right to the center where the oil stain still sat. Dark, familiar, loyal. But the space around it was hollow. empty in a way I felt in my bones. The morning sun came in through the open door, catching little particles of dust floating in the air, floating like memories that didn't know where to settle. Now I picked up Dennis's journal again. His handwriting looked tired near the end, but full of hope. Almost done. Can't wait to teach Carol to drive her properly. Our retirement road trip starts next summer. I pressed the journal to my chest, hard. His coffee mug sat on the shelf, clean but worn, like someone's favorite sweater. The garage still smelled like him. Motor oil, leather, that orange hand soap he swore by. Everything was here. Everything except the one thing he built with his hands and his heart. And the tears came. Quiet, warm, unstoppable. 8 months of widowhood, and I thought I'd cried them all, but losing that car. It was like losing Dennis all over again. I locked the garage door behind me that morning, turned off the light, walked back into the house, clutching Dennis's journal like it was a life jacket keeping me from sinking. But the sight of that empty space in the garage, Lord help me, it felt like a wound someone had carved right into the concrete. I stayed awake the whole night. Grief does that to you. Keeps you wandering through old memories like a ghost in your own home. By 4 a.m., I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at Dennis's careful handwriting on a page I'd read 10 times already. The carburetor repair, measurements so exact you could have built a rocket with them. That man never did anything halfway. And then the phone rang. 7 in the morning. An unknown number. For a full 3 rings, I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in my gut whispered, "Pick it up, Carol." "Hello?" I said. "Mrs. Bennet?" A man's voice, rough, shaky, like he'd either been awake all night or crying. "This is Tom Graves. From Graves Classic Auto. I have your husband's car." I straightened in my chair so fast it startled me. "What?" I could barely breathe. "The Shelby?" "Yes, ma'am. Your son brought it in Wednesday. I need you to come to the dealership, right now, if you can. There's something Dennis wanted you to know. Now grief, I can handle shock. That's another beast entirely." "I don't understand," I said. "I was Dennis's friend," he said. "A good friend. I was at his funeral. Should have talked to you then, but I couldn't. Please, Mrs. Bennet, can you come?" My memory tugged at me. A quiet man at the back of the funeral home. Gray hair, dark suit. He slipped out early, before I had the strength to thank anybody for coming. "Where are you?" I asked. He gave me the address, East Side Industrial District. I wrote it on the back of an old envelope, hands shaking. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I threw on jeans and a sweater, found my keys, drove across town, with my hands gripping the steering wheel like I was holding the world together, past the hospital where I'd spent 40 years of my life. The parking lot was already packed, morning shift. Funny how life doesn't pause even when yours feels like it's fallen apart. The industrial area was all concrete, metal, and the smell of oil. Graves Classic Auto sat at the far end. Clean building, polished windows, and a front lot full of vintage cars shining like jewels under the early sun. A man waited outside the entrance. Gray hair, about 65, jeans, buttoned down, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much in the last few days. He stepped forward when I parked. "Mrs. Bennet," he said, "thank you for coming." "You're Tom?" I asked. "Yes." He shook my hand, firm but trembling. "I'm Tom Graves. Your husband saved my life 25 years ago." I waited, still clutching my purse like a shield. "I needed a business loan," he said. "Had this dream of opening a classic dealership, but no bank would touch me. Bad credit, no collateral, just a whole lot of hope and stupidity." He gave a sad little laugh, eyes glistening. "Your husband co-signed for me," he said. put his own credit on the line, risked everything for a stranger. He looked away. Then, like the memory hurt, I paid him back every penny, he said. But the real debt, the one in here, he tapped his chest, that never got paid. I felt my throat tighten. Dennis never bragged. Never once told me he helped a man start a business. He barely told me when he fixed our own dishwasher. He wouldn't have told you, Tom said softly. That's who Dennis was. He wiped at his eyes, embarrassed. This dealership exists because of him. My whole life changed because he believed in me. He took a breath, steadying himself. When your son brought the Shelby in Wednesday, I recognized it instantly. He swallowed. Dennis talked about that car every time we saw each other. Car shows, auctions, swap meets. He always had pictures. And pride, so much pride. Brian said he sold it, I whispered. He did, Tom said, to me. His face twisted, guilt, disbelief, heartbreak, all mixed together. Your son had no idea what he was selling, he said. I asked him if he knew its value. He told me 15,000 sounded fair. My stomach turned ice cold. What's it worth? I asked. Tom met my eyes, steady, gentle, but heavy with truth. Ma'am, that car's worth around $180,000. The world went silent. 180,000, I repeated. He nodded. It's a documented 1967 Shelby GT 500, one of only 2,048 ever made. And your husband, he restored it to museum quality. I sat right there on the curb, couldn't stand any more. Tom lowered himself beside me, two old souls, sitting in the morning light, letting the truth settle around us. I paid Brian the 15, Tom said. He needed the money, said it was for a Paris trip with his wife. He paused. But Mrs. Bennett, that car was never mine to keep. I looked at him, confused, exhausted. Why are you telling me all this? He stood and held out his hand. Because Dennis made me promise, he said. 2 years ago, I took his hand. Let him help me up. Come inside, he said gently. There's something you need to see. He led me through the spotless showroom, past polished chrome and quiet engines, toward the back, toward the garage, toward the truth my husband left behind. Tom led me into the back garage, and Lord, it was like stepping into a different world. White floors, bright lights overhead, air so clean it almost hummed. 3 cars sat in a row under long gray covers, like sleeping giants. Tom didn't speak, just walked to the last one, took hold of the fabric, and pulled. And there it was, Dennis's Shelby. Burgundy paint glowing under the lights like polished wine. Chrome shining like sunlight on water. I didn't walk toward it, I drifted, like something inside me was pulling me forward. I put my hand on the hood. Cool, smooth, solid. And in that touch, I felt him. Every weekend he spent bent over that engine. Every song he sang quietly while turning a wrench. Every moment he dreamed of that road trip we never got to take. I opened the driver's door and sat down, the leather hugging me like it remembered me. It smelled like home, like motor oil and pine air freshener and that stubborn orange hand soap he used every day. The steering wheel was worn, where his hands used to grip it. I placed my fingers there, right on top of his ghost. Tom leaned against the doorway, his voice low and heavy. 2 years ago, he said, Dennis asked me to help him install something, a hidden compartment. I looked up sharply. Why? He said, if anything happened to him, someone needed to make sure you found what he left for you. Tom swallowed hard. He made me swear. He pointed at the dashboard. Behind the radio, my heart dropped all the way to my shoes. I never looked inside, he added. He told me it was private, for you and only you. My pulse was pounding in my ears. as he showed me how to release the panel. Press here, pull there. The radio face loosened, then slid off cleanly. Behind it, a dark, hidden cavity. Tom stepped out of the garage, closing the door behind him so I could be alone. I reached inside. My fingertips brushed paper. I pulled out a thick manila folder, then a sealed envelope. My name written across the front in Dennis's familiar handwriting. Under that was a small wooden box. Inside it, a single key. The key felt heavy, important. But the letter, oh, that letter weighed more than everything else in that car. I opened it with shaking hands. Dennis's handwriting filled the page, dated 2 months before he died. Carol, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I didn't tell you because you would have insisted we face it together, and I couldn't put this on your shoulders until I had proof. I felt my throat close. I've been investigating Vanessa for 18 months. She's not who she says she is. Her real name is Vanessa Cortland. My breath caught. She's done this before twice, that I've confirmed. This folder holds everything I found. Photos, documents, contacts. The pattern is the same every time. She targets men with aging parents and family assets. I felt sick. Carol, she's going to target our house. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. She'll make Brian believe you're declining. She'll push him to sell the home. Then she'll disappear with the money. I closed my eyes, gripping the letter like it might blow away. I confronted her once, carefully. She's skilled. Brian won't believe me without proof. Not yet. The key in the box is for our safe deposit box at First National. Box 447. Inside are stock certificates from 1994. They're worth more than you think. You're financially protected. Tom knows to call you if anything happens to the car. He's a good man. Trust him. Protect yourself. Protect our son. He's a victim in this too. And then the last line. I love you. I'm still protecting you. Dennis. I read that letter twice, then a third time. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set it in my lap. Dennis had known. All along. He'd carried this burden for 18 months while smiling at me over morning coffee. I opened the manila folder next, and the world tilted. Photos, dozens of them. Vanessa at a wedding. With a man at least 20 years older. Another wedding. With a different man. Different states, different lives. Marriage certificates. Copies from Phoenix and Tampa. Names of her past husbands. Police reports. Newspaper clippings. Local man reports. Elderly mother's life savings. Stolen by daughter-in-law. Family business sold under suspicious circumstances. Daughter-in-law missing. Dennis's handwriting covered the pages. Notes, dates, patterns, warnings. At the very back, contact numbers for her previous victims. And his final handwritten note. Need more concrete proof before telling Brian. She's too good. If you are reading this, please finish what I started. Protect our son. That's when the dam broke. I held that folder against my chest and sobbed. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook me to my bones. Not just grief, not just shock, but the unbearable truth that the man I loved was still taking care of me, even from the grave. George cleared his throat before he went on, like the memories tasted bitter. Dad left the shop to me, he said. I didn't want it at first. I was exhausted, emotionally, physically. Vanessa told me I was burning out, said I deserved peace after everything I'd been through. My chest tightened. Same tone, same strategy. She started pointing out things. George continued. How the shop was old, outdated. How I was working too hard. Why cling to something that only reminds you of what you lost, she'd say. He let out a humorless laugh. I thought she cared, really cared. I could hear Tom shift behind me, crossing his arms, jaw tight. Then she suggested selling it. Said we could start fresh somewhere else. Florida maybe, or Oregon. Somewhere with sun. Somewhere that didn't smell like oil and grief. What did you do? I asked. I sold it, he said. 40 years of family legacy. Sold it for far less than it was worth, because she said a quick sale was better. The buyer gutted it within a month, turned it into a vape shop. He paused. Vanessa said it was symbolic, making space for the future, she called it. But 1 week after the sale closed, she was gone. Gone? I echoed. Gone, he repeated. Bank account empty, her phone dead, every trace of her wiped. She took $320,000, everything I had, everything my father worked for. My stomach dropped. But that wasn't the worst part, George said quietly. What was? She didn't just steal my money. She stole my friends, my confidence, my sense of judgment. She made me believe my father's legacy was a burden, that I was a burden. There was a long silence. Then he said, almost pleading, Mrs. Bennet, she will go after your house. She will make your son think it's his idea. She'll twist conversations, plant doubts, make normal things look like decline. And once Brian believes she's protecting him, you won't be able to reach him. I closed my eyes. George's voice softened. You need evidence, not emotion. Record things, keep notes, and don't confront her without backup. She's smarter than people think. She studies people, learns their soft spots. Then, almost whispering, she found mine. Don't let her find yours. Thank you, I managed, for telling me the truth. I hope you stop her, George said. I hope someone does. I hung up, my fingers cold around the phone. Tom spoke first. Now you know. I nodded, staring at the desk. She's done this 3 times, I whispered. 3 times that we know of. And she's already inside my family. Tom placed a hand on the back of the chair. You have something they didn't, Carol. I looked up at him. Proof, he said. A paper trail. A file Dennis spent 18 months building. You're not starting from nothing. No, I said. I'm not. A new feeling rose in my chest. Not grief, not fear. Resolve, determination. I'm going to finish what Dennis started, I said. I'm going to protect my son, and I'm going to stop her. Tom nodded once, slow and steady. I'll help you. I picked up the manila folder, held it against me like armor. Then we start today. Peter slid the final page toward me. The Paris charges were highlighted in yellow. Thousands of dollars on Brian's cards, all within the last 3 months. My throat tightened. She's already using him. Peter nodded, jaw set. She's laying the groundwork. Classic pattern. Before she isolates the parent, she financially isolates the son. Debt makes people more vulnerable, more desperate. I pressed a hand over my eyes. Brian had always been responsible, careful with money. Proud of it. What's the plan? I asked quietly. Peter folded his hands. We build a case, a real one, something she can't wiggle out of, something Brian can't ignore. He slid another folder toward me, thin, black, ominous. This is Vanessa's trail, everything we've gathered so far. She moves like a ghost. Multiple aliases, multiple states, no convictions because she skirts the law, uses joint accounts, psychological manipulation, emotional grooming. But your husband got close, very close. I touched the folder like it might burn me. What did Dennis find? Peter took a deep breath. He found a man, he said. Someone we've been trying to track down. The only person who ever got close to catching her. Who? Her first victim's brother. I went cold. Peter continued. He's the reason we know her real name. The reason we know her early history. He's been following her since 2015. Says she ruined his mother's life, destroyed his brother's marriage, Stole everything he wants justice. Dennis worked with him for months, exchanging information. What's his name? Daniel Cortland. I froze. Cortland. Her last name. Peter nodded grimly. Her birth name. I swallowed. Hard. Where is he now? Off-grid, Peter said. Moves around. Lives cheap. He's obsessed with tracking her. He never stays in one place long. Makes him hard to find. But you can find him, I said. Yes, Peter replied. And we will. But carefully, he's unstable. Deep trauma, years of obsession. Dennis believed Daniel had the missing pieces, the early frauds, the patterns she perfected over time. I closed my eyes. Everything felt bigger now, darker, more dangerous. Peter leaned forward. You're not alone, Carol. You have resources Dennis left you. You have Tom. You have me. And we know her pattern now. The question is, what's her timeline? I straightened. She's been making comments, I said. Little ones about me being tired, forgetting things, asking whether I've considered downsizing. She brings up the stairs, the yard, the bills. Peter's expression hardened. That means she's close to phase 2. What does that mean? She's preparing Brian to believe you're declining. A cold shiver went through me. How long do we have? Peter didn't sugarcoat it. 2 weeks, maybe, a month at most. She'll push for medical evaluations next. Then temporary, in-home help. Then assisted living brochures. Then the idea that selling the house is the responsible choice. I felt sick. She's already looked up memory care facilities, I whispered. Dennis wrote it in his notes. Peter scribbled quickly. That matches her behavior. She pre-plans, months in advance. He looked up at me, steady and calm. Carol, this is winnable, but we need to act now. He took a deep breath. Our next steps. 1. Document everything Vanessa says or does. Keep a notebook on you. Word-for-word quotes. Times. Dates. 2. Protect your finances immediately. Separate accounts. Freeze anything Brian can legally sign without your approval. 3. We bring in Daniel Cortland. He has evidence Dennis never got. 4. And then we get Brian alone, away from her, calm, rational, presented with undeniable proof. I nodded slowly. What if he still doesn't believe me? Peter held my gaze. He will, he said, because we're not just giving him stories. We're giving him facts, paper trails, legal documents, identity records, prior marriages, missing money. We're giving him the truth. I sat back, exhaling shakily. Dennis had known. He'd started this. He'd left me with the tools to finish it. Where do we begin? I asked. Peter closed the folder. With the biggest threat first. What's that? He slid a photo across the table. Vanessa smiling, holding Brian's arm, her hand resting on his chest, possessively. Peter tapped her face. She's already planning her next move. And she doesn't know yet that you're not the woman she thinks you are. I stared at the photo. No more grief, no more fear, just fire. Then let's stop her, I said. Let's end this. Peter nodded once, sharp, decisive. We will. Her tone was gentle, wrapped in sugar, but every word had a sharp edge hidden underneath. I smiled back just as sweetly. Oh, I appreciate that, truly. But I'm healthy, Vanessa. My doctor says I'm in excellent condition. Vanessa blinked once, only once, but I saw it, a tiny crack in her expression. She hadn't expected me to shut that door so quickly. Brian cleared his throat. Mom, we want to make sure you're okay. That's all. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I know, sweetheart, and I promise, you'll be the first to know if I ever need help. He relaxed a little, but Vanessa, her nails tapped the table, barely audible. She was recalibrating, strategizing, rewriting her approach in real time. The rest of dinner went smoothly. On the surface, But underneath, a war had quietly begun. Later that night, after they left, I called Peter. She started, I told him, right at the dinner table. What did she say? I repeated it. Every detail, every tone, every subtle dig. Peter exhaled sharply. That's phase 2 beginning. She's trying to plant doubts in Brian's mind while appearing caring. Classic manipulation. I didn't give her an inch, I said. Good. But be careful. If she senses resistance, she'll escalate. She'll start inventing things you forgot or did wrong. She has to build a narrative, remember. I did, and she would. I hung up, wrote everything in my notebook, and went to bed. I didn't sleep. The next morning, Thursday, the next move came. At 9:22 a.m., my phone buzzed. Brian, Mom, hey, Vanessa and I were talking, and we think maybe you should schedule a cognitive evaluation. Just to be safe. There it was, faster than Peter predicted. She was accelerating. Why would I need that? I asked lightly. Well, yesterday at dinner you burned the rolls. Remember? I froze. I hadn't burned them. Vanessa had accidentally turned the oven up when she went to help. I swallowed. That was the oven malfunctioning, I said calmly. I got it checked this morning. A lie. Strategic, necessary. Oh. Brian sounded thrown off. She said you seemed a little confused. I wasn't confused, honey. I was tired. Long day. A pause. A long, heavy pause. Okay. Maybe I'm overthinking, he finally said. My chest ached. He was trying. He was tugged between love and manipulation, and he didn't even know it. It's all right, I said gently. You're looking out for me. I love you for that. I love you too, Mom. That evening, Peter stopped by the house. Tom came too. We sat in the living room, 3 people united by a man who was no longer alive, but still protecting us all. She's moving faster than expected, Peter said. Paris probably accelerated her timeline. Luxury trips create desperation. She's pushing Brian to chase that lifestyle permanently. Tom leaned back. What's next for her? Peter answered without hesitation. Next, she'll try to isolate Carol. Any small mistake Carol makes, Vanessa will amplify it. She'll twist it, use it to build her case. I nodded. And Brian? Peter's voice softened. Brian is already confused, exhausted. She'll use that. She'll put him in situations where he has to choose between her and you. And she'll make choosing you look unreasonable. I felt sick. She's going to break him, I whispered. That's why we need evidence, Peter said. And a plan. What kind of plan? Peter opened a new folder. We create scenarios she can't control. We gather proof she can't explain away. We bring Daniel Cortland to back it all up. And when the moment comes, he looked at me steadily. We let Vanessa convict herself. The next day, Friday, the next blow landed. Vanessa showed up at my house unannounced. A bright smile, a pie she clearly didn't bake, and eyes that told me this wasn't a friendly visit. Carol, I just wanted to check in, she said sweetly. Make sure you're doing okay. Of course, I said. Why wouldn't I be? Well, she said lightly, stepping inside without waiting to be invited. Brian said you got confused about the stove last night. I blinked slowly. Oh yes, I said, with the same warm tone she used. He told me that too. I reminded him that you were the one using the oven. Her smile faltered, just a small crack. But I saw it. She recovered quickly. I was only trying to help. Of course, I said kindly. You're always trying to help. Her eyes narrowed a fraction. It was a chess match now, and she realized I wasn't playing the role she expected. Carol, she said softly, Brian worries about you, and honestly, so do I. I stepped closer. I know you do, Vanessa, but I'm perfectly fine, and I'm not going anywhere. The temperature in the room shifted. Slowly, visibly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said at last, "I suppose time will tell." "Yes," I replied, matching her tone. "I suppose it will." She left a minute later. I closed the door and immediately texted Peter. She made the next move. His reply came instantly. "Good, let her keep playing. We're recording every step. She doesn't know she's walking into a trap." I stared at the door. Vanessa had officially begun her campaign, but this time she wasn't the only one planning. The stairs, the yard work. "It's a lot for someone your age," Vanessa said gently, too gently. Brian nodded. "We worry about you here alone, Mom. We, not I." Her words coming out of his mouth. "I appreciate the concern," I said evenly, "but I'm fine." Vanessa let it go on the surface, but the calculation in her eyes told me everything. Seeds planted, she'd push harder next time. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Coffee, apple pie. Vanessa excused herself to the bathroom down the hall. She disappeared for 10 minutes. I waited 5 more, then stood up. My instincts, Dennis's instincts, were screaming. I found her upstairs, near Dennis's old office. The bathroom door downstairs was open, empty. She jumped when she saw me. "Oh, I got turned around," she said, smiling too wide. "This house has so many rooms." "The bathroom is downstairs," I said quietly. "Where it's always been." She touched my arm, laughed. "Of course, silly me. Too much wine." I led her back down, said nothing else. They left an hour later. "Take care of yourself, Carol," she said, all honey and poison. Brian hugged me tight, tighter than usual. When their car disappeared down the street, I went straight to my notebook and wrote every detail. The next morning, I called Brian. "I need to talk to you about something, just you." "What's it about?" "Your father, something I found in his things." Silence. "Vanessa and I don't keep secrets, Mom. This is between you and me. Please, Brian." A long pause. "Okay. This afternoon. I have to tell Vanessa where I'm going." "That's fine." He arrived at 3. Alone. Like he promised, but tense, nervous. I had coffee ready. Dennis's investigation file on the kitchen table. Brian froze when he saw it. "Mom, if this is about the car again." "Sit down, please." He sat, arms crossed, defensive already. I used my ICU nurse voice. Calm, steady, factual. "Before I show you anything, I need you to listen, really listen. This feels like an ambush. It's protection." I handed him Dennis's letter first. He read it, and the color drained from his face. Dad was investigating Vanessa for 18 months. His reaction was immediate. Anger, denial. Dad never liked her. He was paranoid about everything. "This is ridiculous. Look at the evidence." I spread out the photos. Vanessa at 2 weddings, 2 marriage certificates, 2 different husbands. Brian stared. "This could be anyone, someone with the same name. Call them, ask them about their wives." I handed him the paper with Dennis's careful handwriting. "Stanley Wright, Phoenix. George Murphy, Tampa. You want me to call random strangers?" "They're not random. They were married to your wife before you." Brian shot out of his chair, pacing. "This is insane. Vanessa wouldn't. She loves me." "Then prove me wrong. Call them. Prove your father wrong." He grabbed the paper, crumpled it. "I'm not doing this." He headed for the door. "Brian, please." He turned, voice cracking with anger. "Why are you doing this? Can't you just let me be happy?" My voice broke. "Because your father died trying to protect you, and I'm not going to let his last months be for nothing." He slammed the door. I watched him drive away, not knowing if he'd call the numbers or run straight to Vanessa. The waiting was torture. Peter called at 8. "How did it go?" "He was angry. I don't know what he'll do." Give him time. The truth has to sink in. But time felt like it was slipping through my fingers. At midnight, my phone rang. Brian. His voice was wrecked. Mom, I called them, both of them. He was crying. What did they say? Everything. Stanley's mother, George's father's shop. It's the same, exactly the same story. My heart cracked open for him. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I went home after I left your house. I was furious. His voice trembled. But I kept thinking about Dad, about those certificates, so I decided to test her. Just simple questions, Brian said, voice trembling. What happened? I asked softly. I asked where she grew up, what her maiden name was. Tell me about your family, he said. Her answers were different, Mom. Not just a little different, completely different from everything she told me before. Different town, different college, different childhood, different everything. My heart sank. What did you do? I pushed harder. I asked about the credit cards, the ones Peter found, the ones in my name that I didn't know existed. His voice went flat, empty. Her whole face changed, like a mask came off. She said they were business investments that I wouldn't understand. So I asked what business, asked her to show me. He swallowed hard. She told me she didn't have to prove anything, that I should trust my wife. And then I kept pushing. I told her I wanted to see the statements. They're in my name. Then she packed a bag. His voice cracked. No more pretending. She said I was weak, said I was just like all the others, just like Dad said. Then she walked out, got in her car, and left. He took a shaky breath. I've been calling her. She won't answer. Stay there, I said. I'm calling Peter. I dialed Peter immediately. He answered on the first ring. I'm already tracking her through the credit cards, he said. She checked into the airport Marriott an hour ago. She's leaving. She's made multiple cash withdrawals, about $12,000 total, and she just booked a flight. A pause. Mexico City, 6 a.m. one way. My stomach dropped. She's running. Yes, Peter said. But there's more. Vanessa Cortland is a stolen identity. The real Vanessa Cortland died in a car accident in 2018. This woman's real name is Linda Marsh. She's wanted for fraud in 2 other states under different names. Can the police stop her? I've already contacted detectives in Arizona and Florida. Warrant is being issued now. If we move fast, we can get her at the airport before she boards. What do you need? Brian's cooperation, his statement about the forged credit cards. Can he do it? I asked quietly. Yes, I'll make sure of it. At 3 a.m., we met at my house. Peter, Brian, and me. Brian looked destroyed, eyes red, hands shaking, a man barely holding himself together. He sat at the kitchen table as Peter laid out the situation. She's leaving on a 6 a.m. flight. Police are ready to arrest her on the warrants, but we need your statement to lock down the credit card fraud. This will become public. You'll have to testify. Are you ready for that? Brian looked at me. What would Dad do? I took his hand. Your father spent his last months building a case against her. He died before he could finish it. He'd want you to stop her, not for revenge, but so she can never do this to anyone else. Brian was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. Call the police. Let's go. We got in Peter's car and drove through the empty streets. The city was dark, silent. Brian stared out the window, hollow. I reached back and took his hand. He held on tight, like a child again. The airport was waking up when we arrived. Coffee machines buzzing. Business travelers shuffling in half sleep. Harsh fluorescent lights. Peter placed us behind a column near security. Police detectives were already in position. Brian hadn't spoken since we left the house. I stayed close to him. 5:30 a.m. The security line was growing. And then Vanessa. 2 large suitcases, designer coat, sunglasses before sunrise, hair perfect, boarding pass in hand. She looked like she was heading to a spa vacation. She stepped into the line. The detectives moved in. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you." Vanessa turned, startled for a heartbeat. Then her face smoothed into a perfect smile. "Is there a problem, officers?" The detective held up his badge. "We have a warrant for your arrest. Linda Marsh." Her smile froze, just for a second. "I don't know who that is. My name is Vanessa Bennett." "Ma'am, please step aside." She looked around, calculating. She saw the other detective blocking the exit. And then she ran. She dropped her suitcases, kicked off her heels, bolted across the polished airport floor in her stockings. Airport security caught her before she made it 20 feet, tackled her right under the departure board. She fought viciously, kicking, screaming, "Get off me! I haven't done anything." Travelers stopped. Phones came out. People filmed as police pinned her arms, snapped handcuffs around her wrists, and read her rights while she thrashed on the floor. A detective unzipped her luggage, right there at security. The first suitcase held normal items: clothes, shoes, toiletries. The second, stacks of cash, rubber banded. $48,000, we learned later. A passport with her photo, but a different name, Linda Brennan. Bank documents, a printed list of account numbers, an external hard drive. The detective held up the passport. "Want to explain this?" Vanessa spat at him. Police lifted her to her feet. She was still fighting when she saw us, Brian standing 30 feet away, and me beside him. She froze. Then her face twisted into pure hatred. "You," she hissed. She lunged at Brian, but officers yanked her back. She kicked, screamed, clawed at the air. "You did this," she shrieked. "You pathetic, weak little man, just like the others. You really thought someone like me would want you. You're nothing, nothing." Brian flinched, shoulders curling inward like a wounded child. I stepped in front of him, just enough for her to see. She turned her fury on me. "And you interfering old woman. This was mine, my score. 3 years I spent on this. You should have minded your damn business and died already." Her voice echoed across the terminal. People stared, filmed, whispered. I didn't move, didn't speak, just kept my hand on Brian's arm. Police dragged her away as she screamed threats over her shoulder, her voice fading as they pulled her beyond the security doors. And then she was gone. Brian stood frozen, shaking. "Let's go home," I said softly. 2 weeks later, police station detective Ramirez laid everything out. Evidence spread across the table. "Her real name is Linda Marsh, born in Ohio," he said. "Started running cons at 20. Small stuff first, then identity theft, elder fraud. Vanessa Cortland, a stolen identity. The real woman died in a car accident in 2018. Linda stole her name, her life, her history. They'd found 5 previous victims, maybe more. The pattern stretched back 8 years. Charges filed in Arizona, Florida, and our state. Identity theft, fraud, theft by deception, forgery, financial exploitation. The prosecutor expected a plea deal, 12 to 15 years, federal prison. Stanley Wright and George Murphy's cases were reopened. Some funds might be recovered. Brian's credit card debts were wiped. Fraud confirmed. 1 month later, Brian showed up at my door with 2 suitcases. "Can I stay here? Just for a while?" Of course. He moved back into his old room. Posters still on the walls, trophies still on the shelf. The marriage was annulled. never legal. A union built on a stolen identity. Brian started therapy twice a week. Some days he smiled and made breakfast. Some days he barely spoke. Healing wasn't linear. I never pushed. I just made sure the house felt safe, warm, steady, a place where he could breathe again. 2 months after the airport, the prosecutor called. Vanessa took the plea. He said, 12 years, federal. I told Brian over dinner. He nodded, didn't say much. That Saturday, I found him in the garage. He was sitting on Dennis's old work stool, the work journal open on his lap, tears dripping onto the pages. I found this on the bench, he whispered. He held the journal like something sacred, fragile but precious. He turned to a page, Dennis's handwriting. Taught Brian to change the oil today. He's 12, old enough to learn. His hands are still small, but careful. He listened to every word, so proud of him. Brian's voice cracked. Another entry. Brian came by to help with the engine rebuild. We worked all afternoon, barely talked, didn't need to. These are the days I'll remember. Brian pressed the journal to his forehead, sobbing. And I finally understood. This wasn't just the end of Vanessa. It was the beginning of my son finding his way back home. I barely remember this, Brian whispered, working on the car with him. I was so young. I just sat on the workbench beside him while he explained things. He loved those days. He talked about them all the time. He swallowed hard. I sold his car. Brian choked out. The car he spent 20 years building. For $15,000. For a trip to impress a woman who was planning to destroy our family. You didn't know, I said softly. But I should have known. His voice cracked. Dad tried to warn me. Those last months, he kept asking about Vanessa, about our plans, about money. I thought he was being controlling. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. The last conversation I ever had with him, we argued about her. His voice broke. I told him to back off, to let me live my life. And then he died a week later. I never apologized. My throat tightened. He knew you loved him. Brian shook his head. How could he? I chose her over him, over you, over everything he taught me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out Dennis's letter, the one he left hidden in the car. I'd been waiting for the right moment. Read this. Brian took it with trembling hands as he read Dennis's words about not wanting to break Brian's heart without absolute proof, about loving him, about knowing he was a victim too. Brian's face crumpled. He understood, I said quietly. He knew Vanessa was good at what she did. He didn't blame you. Brian collapsed into sobs, deep, shaking cries that came from years of guilt. I held him the way I did when he was a child. Only this time, the wounds were much deeper. We stayed in the garage for a long time, surrounded by Dennis's world, his tools, his workbench, his radio, the smell of motor oil, and worn leather. Eventually, the tears slowed. Brian wiped his face again. I wish the car was still here, he whispered. I'd learn everything about it, the way Dad wanted me to. I didn't answer. I just squeezed his shoulder. He gently closed Dennis's journal and placed it back exactly where his father had left it. We walked back to the house as evening settled in. The place felt different. Not whole yet, but healing. A week after Vanessa was sentenced, I wrote a check for $5,000 to pay the rest of Brian's debt. I didn't mention it again. The stock certificates Dennis left me were worth $342,000, more than we'd saved in our entire marriage. I sat with that number for days, thinking about what he would want. I sent checks to those Vanessa had destroyed. $10,000 to Stanley Wright. For your mother's memory, from someone who understands. $10,000 to George Murphy. Similar note attached. For myself. I stayed in the house. Maybe I'd travel someday. Simple trips, but nothing extravagant. Dennis always wanted me to stay independent. 2 months after the airport, on a warm Saturday morning, I heard an engine rumble outside. Deep, powerful, familiar. I looked through the kitchen window. The Shelby sat in my driveway. Its burgundy paint glowed in the sunlight. Tom Graves was behind the wheel. My heart stopped. Brian heard it too. His footsteps thudded down the stairs behind me. We stepped onto the porch together just as Tom climbed out of the car. He smiled, bringing her home where she belongs. Brian stared, frozen, breathless. Tom walked up and held the keys out to me. "This was never mine, Mrs. Bennet. Dennis built it for you." "Tom, you paid Brian $15,000. Tom shook his head. "This car is worth more than money. Dennis would want you to have it, and he'd want Brian to learn it. That's what matters." Brian's voice was hoarse. "I sold it. I threw it away." Tom looked at him firmly. "You were a victim too." Dennis knew that. That's why he built the case the way he did. To protect you. He placed the keys in my hand. "Dennis told me once this car wasn't really his. It was always meant for his family, for the people he loved." He nodded toward the garage. "You want help getting her inside?" We opened the garage door together. Tom backed the Shelby into the exact spot it had left months before. Dennis's car was home. The oil stain on the concrete was still there, just as Dennis left it. When the engine shut off, silence filled the garage. And then, slowly, the familiar scent returned. Motor oil, old leather, Dennis. Tom stepped out of the car and stood there quietly, admiring the Shelby like it was an old friend. "He'd be proud of what you did," he said to me, "stopping her, protecting your son." Then he looked at Brian. "And he'd be proud that you came back, that you're healing." After coffee and a long talk, Tom hugged us both and left. Brian and I stayed in the garage, staring at the car sitting between us. "I can't believe it's back," Brian whispered. "Neither can I." He touched the hood gently, running his hand along the smooth burgundy paint. "I don't deserve this." "Dennis thought you did," I said, "and that's enough." 3 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, we began. Brian brought Dennis's work journal. I brought coffee. We opened the hood together. The engine looked exactly how Dennis left it. Reliable, loved, built piece by his hands. "I don't know where to start," Brian admitted. I flipped to a page Dennis had marked long ago. Teaching Brian. Dennis's handwriting was steady and patient. "Start with the oil," I read aloud. "Check it first, every time. Before you drive her, know she's ready." Brian followed the instructions, finding the dipstick and checking the level. His hands were steadier now. Months of therapy turning chaos into clarity. We spent the whole morning working through the car, checking fluids, cleaning filters, testing systems, following Dennis's notes, one careful step at a time. I watched confidence grow in Brian's face, in his movements, in his breath. By afternoon, he was smiling, really smiling. "I forgot how much I loved this," he said, "being in the garage, working with my hands." "Your father loved these days with you," I told him. Brian nodded slowly. "I'm remembering more now. Little things. The way he explained everything twice. The way he let me try, even when I messed up." He closed the hood gently. "I'm going to take care of this car, the way he wanted." "We'll take care of it," I said. 4 months after Tom returned the car, it was time. A warm Saturday morning, spring, leaning into summer. I stood in the garage holding the keys. Brian walked out. "You ready?" he asked. "I think so." We got in. Brian in the passenger seat, me behind the wheel. The leather was cool beneath me. the steering wheel worn smooth, where Dennis's hands held it for 20 years. I adjusted the mirrors, checked the gauges, just like the journal taught. Then I turned the key. The Shelby roared to life, deep, steady, powerful, a heartbeat made of steel and love. I backed out slowly, Brian's hand resting on the door handle, nervous but trusting. We drove down Oakwood Drive, windows down, warm wind brushing our faces, the engine purring, alive, free. Brian laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in years. Dad would lose his mind right now, in the best way. He taught me to drive in a stick-shift Ford, he added. I stalled it 6 times. He never got frustrated. We had no destination. We just drove. Past the hospital where I'd worked. Past Brian's old high school. Past every memory that had shaped our lives. The Shelby responded perfectly. 20 years of Dennis's restoration, paying off in every curve and mile. After an hour, we went home, and I backed the car into the garage. A perfect fit, like it had never left. When I turned the engine off, the silence felt full, not empty. Dad would be so proud of you, Brian said. Of us, I corrected. That evening, I made dinner. Brian helped chop vegetables the way Dennis used to. The house felt different, quiet but warm, safe, the garage full again. Dennis's tools on their pegboard, his journal on the workbench, the Shelby resting in its rightful place. I looked out the window and thought of Dennis's letter. I'm still protecting you. And he was. Through the investigation he built, through the evidence he left, through Tom keeping his promise, through the car that brought our family back together, Dennis loved me enough to prepare for everything. I wasn't alone. I had never been alone. And I never would be. And that is my story. Now I want to hear from you. Would you have forgiven your child for selling something that precious? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like mine.